Hello, my name is Shara Crawford, and today I will be giving you a presentation based on memory retrieval. And today the pages I worked on were 334 and through 337. So here is memory, and here I have a picture of a tree. Now I feel that memory is like a tree because I feel like this right here would be the brain. And when you start to form memories, these are the details of the contextual effects of that memory, such as like the sight, the smell, the people that were there, the atmosphere. All those things make up a memory. So there's never just like one detail in a memory. It's always like the surroundings, and every little detail is like a part of a memory. You understand? Now, my next slide is the priming, the awakening association. Now, priming is memoryless, and it's basically something to do with your subconscious. Take, for example, here I have a example of a person and they're seeing the woods. Subconsciously, they're thinking there could be danger in the woods of a bear. Now, he's primed to believe that if he sees the woods, even though it's just the woods, that there could be a bear there. And that is one example of your brain priming to think of one way. Or like if you would see a rabbit and your brain could be primed to think that's a hare. And you would be saying, well, I know that's a rabbit, but in your subconscious, it could be like, oh, that's a hare. And that's another example of priming. Next. Next is context-dependent memory. Now, context-dependent memory, like I have, for example, here is a little girl, and the contextual evidence here would be a picture of her mom and perhaps a home that she used to live in. That would stimulate memories of that particular state. And that would bring her to think of a memory because of her surroundings and the details on the wall, which is of her mom and her when she was younger. That would make her feel like, oh, I miss my mom and things like that, because she's seeing evidence of a past memory. Okay, next. Now we have here state-dependent memory. Here for state-dependent memory, this is when you're in a particular state and only can recall certain memories based on that particular state. Say, for example, we have a person underwater and he learns a specific thing. But then when he's trying to recall it out of the water, he can't recall or do it as best as he did when he was underwater. And this is what makes it state dependency, because it depends on the state that he's in that he is best likely to recall that certain memory. So if that memory is done when you were like, say you were drunk and you learned something or said something crazy, you couldn't really do it again unless you're back into that state. And that is called state dependent memory. Next, we have serial position effect, and that is when an individual remembers what they encountered or rehearsed first better than they would encounter or learned last. And for example, I have here a percentage recall. So a lot of people would recall, like, say you're in the office and your coworker says to remember a couple of things to do. You would remember that, but you wouldn't remember the last thing he said. So he said a couple of things like, oh, clean this, wash the dishes, and mop the floors. You will most likely remember the first two better than the last one. because your brain would be still processing that last request. And that is also an example of the primacy effect, when you most likely only remember faster, more rapidly, the first thing said rather than the last thing said. And another example is of the recency effects, is when you would see, say a person says, oh, I'm cooking onions and bacon and sausage and bananas. And then you'll just remember, okay, so you said sausage and bananas. That would be an example of the recency effect, because your brain didn't process the first two yet, but processed the last. And that is the effect of recency. And all of these come into play when dealing with your memory. You have all of these complex things going into play when every time that you're in thought of a memory, or you go into a place that you've been to once before. They all come into play. And this is what brings me back to saying that memory is like a tree with branches and leaves, because the brain is so intricate, and it's a very important organ that it forms so many intricate information that all comes into play when thinking and responding, and your surroundings, all of those things. Well, this is Sherrod Crawford. This is my presentation on memory retrieval, and I hope you loved it. And peace out. Have a good day.